And they ran it for weeks, and people wrote in with their suggestions for saving money. And I wrote to the editor saying, where are the suggestions for improving public services? Where are the suggestions that people might think, if we spent more on that, we would avoid issues, we would avoid problems. If we spent more on that, we would have a nicer St. Helly or cleaner beaches or whatever. And he replied saying, I think I think it was called Thrift Jersey or something. It was a huge campaign. And he said it was perfectly fair and wasn't biased. So, but what he was doing was directing people's attention to cuts, cuts. Anyway, I had the privilege of being the speaker, so my list of what the states should spend more on was listed when I did an amendment to the annual business plan in 2012. And it started off, and I said my amendment was to spend more, another 20 million or so. And I said there were savings that were possible, but we still needed to spend more on things like the General Hospital. And I listed, had 9 pages of the addendum went on what we should spend more on. And the General Hospital was the first one. Hospital in urgent need of upgrade. The system is so poor that raw sewage leaks out into the hospital every couple of weeks, said the hospital director. That is the Hospital of Jersey in the 21st century. Raw sewage running down the walls in certain rooms. The building has a lack of fire evacuation procedures, raw sewage leaks, a maternity unit with facilities behind those of a developing country, and practices still in place which were stopped in the NHS over 20 years ago. That was the new hospital director. So I quoted him. We need to spend money on the hospital. And it has to be said, we are now spending money on the hospital, interim, and we're going to have a new hospital. But it was partly because it had been pointed out by myself and others that the hospital was in drastic need of spending more money. Clinic Pinel, which you may or may not know, it deals with mentally ill people. And since, 1998 I have here, 1998 report, Clinic Pinel refurbishment, something should happen. 1998, 10 years later, nothing had happened. Nothing. And then Mr. Ozu did a visit to Clinic Pinel and said, my goodness, this needs to happen now. And so the money was voted by the states. But the fact is, it had sat there, left because mentally ill people don't matter, for over 10 years. The prison in 2001, I think in 2005, had 2 inspections by Her Majesty's Inspector of Prisons, which were damning. They said, this prison is appalling. It has to change. And they spelled it out in 2001. The inspector came back in 2005 and said, it hasn't changed. Yeah. You guys have got to wake up. And finally, Wendy Kinnard got Frank Walker to spend to release the money. And the prison has now been substantially improved, both in staffing and in the actual physical building. And the results are tremendous. The report said they're not doing any rehabilitation at all. It's just a revolving door. You go in, you come out, you re-offend, you go back in again. Yep. And now it has changed, although we are reading that, there's change. Perhaps we need some more change. But the fact is that it took a bombshell from Her Majesty's Inspector of Prisons to actually get the money spent. Staffing issues at probation. I quoted their business plan 2011 saying we are at our absolute limit in probation. We can't do any more. We are creaking at the seams. Staffing issues at environment. They have been saving money for years. They are so stretched, and the areas they have to cover increase every year because we pass another law, because we have to have water pollution, we have to have this, we have to have air pollution, and they are trying to cover it all, and they're getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And what happens to the elastic band? So that is an area that is still underfunded. Jersey Archive are 25 years behind with their cataloguing. Just 25 years. Tourism Development Fund, £10 million voted, about 2 million I think actually arrived. So that is my little list, but no doubt you had other lists. But there is this thing that Jersey spends an awful lot of money on public services. So, case study. This idea, framing the public debate so that you and everybody out there thinks that the states spend an awful lot of money. I don't know what you put down in your quick quizzes, but I think there is the evidence shows, and I'll tell you it, that there is a sustained effort on behalf of what I call the establishment, lots of figures, and I'll list them to you, to say Jersey is spending more every year, a lot more every year, and we need to cut, and it's all terrible, and Jersey needs to grow, and in order to grow, it will spend less money as a government. And this is a constant, sustained campaign. And what it does is it squeezes out other opinions. We don't have a proper discussion about how much we should tax and how much we should spend. There's everything from the small state guys who think that we should just about have a little army, and that's about it, to the people who, the Nordic end, which is really, really luxurious social provision. And between those two, there's a whole spectrum which should be discussed. It is the major issue in politics. But what happens in Jersey is that it is captured by a certain viewpoint and drip, 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 constantly that one viewpoint. And I think that is an erosion of trust. It's not honest, it's not truthful. And I shall just quickly run through some, and remember, everything I tell you got a headline on the front page of the JP, pretty well everything. The key, what's his name, the Controller and Auditor General wrote a report in 2010